So Diddy's trial has finally began with opening statements in the courtroom in New York City on May 12th after a week of jury selection. Let's read this recap from CNN from the first part of the day because there's a lot that went on. And admittedly, I have not really been paying attention to this very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of saw it pop up, but
let's just kind of see where we're at with this, and then we can kind of go from there. Maybe we can pull this up on this. Catch up today on key lines from Sean Diddy Combs trial. Granted, today's Tuesday, so let's see. You know, there's probably going to be a lot that happens between now and Thursday when this drops. But music mogul Sean Diddy Combs' trial began Tuesday, where he faces 5 counts, including 1 count of racketeering, conspiracy, 2 counts of sex trafficking, and 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. If convicted, he could face life in prison. He has pleaded not guilty to the charges. Here's what to know from the opening statement. Here's kind of like the highlights, I guess. So prosecution's opening statement, Assistant Attorney General Emily Johnson said there was another side to Combs, the culture icon, who ran a criminal enterprise with an inner circle of people who helped him commit crimes and cover them up. Here's what she walked through. Johnson detailed that Combs forced his former girlfriend, Cassie, to have sex with male escorts, filmed it, and kept the recordings as blackmail. Resources from Combs' businesses were used to sexually exploit multiple women, described freak-offs, or the multiple-day events that Combs allegedly orchestrated where women, including Ventura, were allegedly drugged and forced into unwanted sex acts. Much of the prosecution's case will focus on Ventura and another victim who will be identified by the pseudonym Jane during the trial. The defense came out and said, from Terry Geragos, I guess, said that while Garagos, okay. While Combs takes full responsibility for his violent behavior, the domestic violence is not sex trafficking. Here's what else Garagos said. Told the jury that was right? Garagos, sorry. Garagos told the jury that they will hear evidence of Combs' sexual preferences, and it may make them uncomfortable, but the panel is not here to judge him for those preferences. The defense attorney called the 2016 video in which Combs is seen assaulting Cassie indefensible. It's the only reason why that's the defense anyways, but insistent it is evidence of domestic violence, not sex trafficking, which I guess that's true. Also said Ventura made a choice of staying with Combs for 11 years and then made a choice to break up with him on her own terms. Doesn't make it right.
True.
So there's a first witness testimony, second witness testimony. There's another part, but there's like, there was also a part in here talking about like he watched, what was the pee part?
He had this in her mouth.
Somebody peed in somebody's mouth or something like that. I mean, that's what they said. That's what was
that's where I was like, do I really want to read further?
Well, they got to some other mess.
Yeah.
Hold on,
I hate to even be laughing at this shit, but
let's just keep going.
Yeah.
First witness testimony. Los Angeles police officer Israel Flores was a security officer.
Hold on. Let's take a pause for a second.
Wait a minute.
Let's
straighten up a little bit.
Let's shake it off.
Yo, I think it's funny.
Lone said,
you should not supposed to say that.
Lone said, he said, wait, where's the pee part?
See, that's the part that was funny. Like that. We're not laughing at it.
Tell him about the gun line.
Tell him about the gun line, boss.
Man.
All right, so first witness testimony. Los Angeles police officer Israel Flores was a security official at the Intercontinental Hotel on March 26th when he got a call saying there was a woman in distress. Here's what he said. He stepped out of the elevator and saw Combs and the woman in the elevator lobby. Flores testified that he escorted Combs and Ventura back to the hotel room. Flores also testified that Combs approached him in the hotel room with a wad of cash that he interpreted to be a bribe. He said he declined the cash. He said Ventura later left a hotel with a purple eye. He filed a report on the incident after, but said he didn't call the police because there was no victim there. Obviously, nobody was pressing charges. Okay.
Well, you should have took that money.
Yeah, potentially. but we saw the video of her running away, so we've seen that. Second witness testimony came from Daniel Phillip, who described his role as managing male strippers for women. Phillip will be back on the stand tomorrow. Here's what he said today. Phillip said he was called in 2012 and received money to have sex with Ventura. He testified to having sex with Ventura while Combs was sitting in the corner He said Combs would direct him and Ventura as they had sex, ask them to use baby oil every time.
Of course.
Because he had a whole room of it.
Yeah.
He used 10
Allegedly.
bottles at a time is what they were saying.
And Combs recorded it on 1 or 2 occasions. Philip said Combs once took a picture of his driver's license and said it was for insurance purposes, which he perceived as a threat. Philip encountered one incident where he saw Combs assault Ventura at her home, dragging her by her hair into her bedroom. He said he didn't report the incident because he was afraid he may lose his life. That's interesting because I thought there was the P line. Wasn't there something about P?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think you may not have.
So maybe
this went on for a long time.
Yeah, this been going on.
This might have been just day one.
So I'm guessing, but I thought that was revealed in the first day. So maybe they're just saying that it's not one of the important pieces.
Maybe that part. Maybe it didn't make this rundown or whatever.
It didn't make CNN's rundown, but I've definitely seen.
Yeah, it's out there.
Some things about her. It's actually her disposition.
I see.
It's them questioning her about what went on, asking if she actually enjoyed him peeing in her mouth. She's saying she didn't enjoy it.
I imagine not.
It's a man.
I mean, of course, her husband's in there.
Yeah, well, I think they
there.
actually told him to. I don't know if he was present for her disposition or whatever, but what I think we're dealing with here is a sexual deviant.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, and that being Sean P. Diddy Combs, and he engaged in a lot of acts that people were paid for and people participated in willingly. That does not excuse the behavior or the type of person he is. But from what I've been seeing, it looks like a lot of willing behavior happened at some of these shindigs. Again, I'm not taking anything away from what he's doing. But
it also seemed like there was like a lot of coercion with threats because of Diddy's power as well, because of the power that he could potentially hold over people.
That's true.
To some degree.
Yeah, to some degree. And it also turns into that as well once things get to court, because when people start seeing money and things of that nature, a lot of times their tune changes as far as what actually happened. Now, I'm sure Cassie has been damaged emotionally, and I mean, we've seen physically over a lot of things that happened. But she goes into detail talking about how she was in love with this man, and she knew what kind of person he was, and she was around for 10, 11 years.
Yeah.
And again, these are not excuses, but sometimes it takes some self-involvement to actually look at yourself in the mirror and realize that this isn't who I am.
Right.
It feels you would think somebody would realize that before it's been 10, 11 years.
But again, with that being said, you know, there is something to be said about just feeling trapped and feeling like this person is controlling my life and I can't get away from it. You know, and like if I do try to get away from it, then what's going to happen to me, and you know, what are the repercussions and everything with that?
I think what Lone said is spot on. It's a situation where you're dealing with people that have actual fear.
Yeah,
that's the part.
Yeah. And what we read,
fear.
what we read actually kind of described that a little bit. You know?
Yeah, because even the comment about the gentleman's driver's license, that's a fear. That's a play on blackmail. That's me flexing my power.
Yeah, that's like, oh, you saw this? Let me take a picture of this,
just in case I need to find you.
You know, it's like that's more than like that's a little bit more than deviance.
Yeah.
Well,
he's
in
a
that
nasty
particular,
motherfucker. He's nasty
for sure. But in that, like, so I think it goes beyond that, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think a lot of the problem too is people give people with money too much power.
Yeah,
it's almost like anything goes just because you have money. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the day of reckoning. You have a say-so in a place in order to decide somebody's fate without being burdened by how much money or power you think they have. Obviously, that money's not doing anything for him right now because he's been locked up in prison since November, something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know, man, but I mean, Diddy's sick. I don't know if y'all seen the part where they said that he would watch Cassie have sex with a male escort or whatever, and have the male escort on her and come in the next room, and she would rub that on his nipples.
That's so weird.
I didn't see that one. I didn't see that one.
No, that's all.
Yeah,
that
This is going to be an amazing episode.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one.
Demonetized.
Yeah. That's crazy work. What you just said, though.
I know,
That's
and
crazy
all
work.
this stuff that's crazy work, and I feel like this individual is I don't even call him a sexual deviant. Well, yeah, he's a sexual deviant. Let's just get that out the way. But I have yet to hear anything that makes me say, "Oh yeah, life in prison." I mean, and I feel like sometimes there is a thin line, and this is going to sound bad, but it is what it is, between someone being a victim and a volunteer. When I hear 11 years, I didn't realize they'd been together that long. But then they're showing pictures of them from the Met Gala and all these award shows. Like they had been rocking, even though it's just Mr. Combs had several children during this time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you couldn't sneak away none of that time. And like, I understand, like she was young when they first got together.
17.
Yeah. So, she had no life experience. All she knows is somebody she's seen on TV.
Yeah.
And that's also grooming.
Yeah. So
It
I don't
depends
know
on what state you're in too.
what I'm seeing now, I'm just like, okay, for all the things that are embarrassing and nasty, when are we going to get to the crime? Like the crimes that are supposed to have him locked up for the rest of his life. Because at this point, like, I don't know if this is any more than I mean, like I said, his lawyer said, yeah, this is some things that are going to shock you and be somewhat embarrassing. I don't know. I don't even know if he's embarrassed of them. I think he should. Everybody's got, whatever freak flag they try to fly, they don't want everybody to know how they get down. But like when you involve this many people, eventually somebody was going to find out.
True.
You can't, even if he comes out of this, there's no way you can get around rubbing somebody else's smegma on your
Okay. Yeah.
nipples.
No, you can't get around
that.
That. And and
that follows
it's going to
you.
be a hard, you say he comes home and you're looking at dude like, no, I'm here. You can use the plastic cups.
Yeah, you playing baby batter.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, you're not gonna use any of my fine china or any of my. I don't care how many times I run it through the dishwasher.
He's one of them people that you gonna look at and just be like, you disgust me.
Yeah, I'll be like,
he's
filth on
be
filth.
like, nah, I'm not shaking your hand, Playboy.
Yeah.
I don't know where that hand has been.
There's a random side really quick. You guys ever seen Meat Canyon?
Meat Canyon.
I don't know if I want to see Meat Canyon.
He's this guy that does these animations. They're really kind of funny on YouTube, but he just dropped one about gooners.
Yeah.
Just look it up.
Or not, depending on.
It's like 18 minutes long. It's disturbing and funny at the same time. Anyways.
Yeah.
Nah,
speaking of baby matter.
Yo. Like that doesn't go away, bro. That follows you. I don't care whatever happens moving forward. You're gonna be associated with that.
I said when we talked about this before, the whole thing with when he got caught, the video of him beating Cassie. If he beats this whole thing, it's not gonna be like let's get the party started.
Right.
All right. Like it's over for that. As far as you being the toast of the town and people with the pictures and you going to the Met Gala or whatever award show and sit in front row, it's over for that.
Yeah, that life is over.
So now you just better, if I'm Sean Combs, I'm just hoping that I get to come home, be with my family and just sit down somewhere and live out the rest of my life as far away from his public life is over, and that's what he's lived for this entire time.
His whole time.
So it's going to be difficult for him. But once again, if you've been locked up in like the nastiest of jails, eating, the nastiest of food after you've lived a whole 5-star life since, basically 1997 or whatever, like you're just going to be happy to be out.
Where are you all in terms of, we talked about what happened throughout the first part. We talked about, the first couple of days. But where does everybody stand in terms of the actual outcome? Do we even care about the outcome at this point because so many things have been revealed? Is it a situation where it's just beginning? Like, how do you look at it?
I don't personally care.
Okay.
But it's like, I don't have any type, but you guys know me. I'm not a celebrity worshiper type person. He's a celebrity. He's done some really foul stuff. I hope that he gets what he's this should be coming to him, whatever that is.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not making any like judgment here. But yeah, I don't really care, man. I just hope that the right things happen.
Right.
That's about it.
What you think, Jerry? Where are you on the outcome?
I'm ready to hear from the other witnesses to see what happened to them, honestly. Because based on what happened these past couple of days in court, I'm kind of with Jay Moore on it as far as this isn't meriting him spending his life in prison. This is a situation to where, again, he's a sexual deviant and he was into some freaky shit.
Yeah.
And it's all being exposed. But I don't see this being something that would land somebody in prison for the rest of their life. Now, if we're starting to talk about some underage situations, some things where people were really like real kept against their will, things of that nature. Even when they talk about sex trafficking can be you're messing with a girl and you buy her a plane ticket and she flies to see you. Technically, that's sex trafficking.
We've seen stuff like that kind of pop up, I believe.
Yeah,
Tony Busby's stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that happens literally every day.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. But in a court of law, when you say sex trafficking, you're thinking busloads of people are coming in against their will. So don't get lost in the wording of a lot of this stuff. And just pay attention to what's going on, and hopefully justice will prevail. Because I'm not standing with anybody on this. I want to see what goes on and make my judgment as if I was part of the juror myself.
Right.
That's fair. What you think, Jay?
My whole thing is this: when you see somebody fall, I don't want to say it's easy to laugh because a lot of this is not funny.
Right.
But I think it's more important that people learn. I think it's more important that you see someone who has so much money that there's nothing that he can't buy. There's no house he can't buy. There's no place he can't go. There's no car he can't drive. And all of that is at risk because of a lack of sexual discipline or just a lack of just discipline overall.
With power.
With your power. And so I think this is something where everybody can learn from. It's like, look, there's nothing that can keep you from facing the judgment of your bad decisions and your lack of discipline if you are not careful. I mean, this isn't even being about if someone says, no, I'm not into that. Yeah, just let them go ahead and go home. Because trust me, this is the thing about, famous men specifically. I'm not saying there aren't famous women that have certain proclivities that would lend themselves to a certain level of debauchery that would have us looking at them strange. But it's mostly men. And like I've said this offline before, I don't understand for lack of a better term, rich freaks. When we talk about Deshaun, Watson?
Watson, yeah.
And for him, getting women off of Instagram and then whipping his yam out or whatever. And like, that's such nasty work considering, here you are, the $100 million quarterback of, the team in your city. Like, you honestly could just, say, hey, yo, who want to come over here and play with Deshaun's dick? And you'd get some responses. You know what I'm saying?
True,
like I have.
That's real.
Like I remember I was in. I'm not gonna say a rapper. I was in the club with a rapper. Had maybe a hit and a half, and he's there with his crew.
You just played said rapper.
No, I mean this was early in his career. He went on to do a lot.
Okay,
I've told this story. I'll tell you offline. And I just remember, they had the little VIP. I'm with the people from Def Jam. There are women literally like spreading their ass cheeks to get into. This is when he just had about a gold record's worth of fame. So I'm imagining multi-platinum, multi-millionaires. The level of foolishness
like open ass
women will involve themselves with just to be next to somebody famous. Like, you don't have to do all this.
Yeah.
I know, like I said, I'm not, it's kind of a weird way to look at it. And once again, this speaks to maybe the dysfunction and the sickness in some of these people's minds. Like, when we talk about Bill Cosby and all this stuff, like, that's about him wanting to mess with women who's asleep. Because trust me, at the top of his fame, he could have been like, hey, you want to be one of Claire's friends on the Cosby Show? Let me know what that do. And then you got a position. He's in a position with that, or she's in a position to say yes or no. But instead,
regular sex stops working for these type of people. That's why Bill Cosby's track record, the women that were accusing him weren't all that pleasant on the eyes. I think he was just done messing with attractive women at one point in time.
Well, I mean,
was,
by the time we saw him,
he
they was
wanted to try
old,
something different.
you know, and so like they, you know, we that was unfair of me to say, but yeah,
It definitely was.
But I mean, that's part of it. But once again, it's messed up. I talked to somebody about this, and you know, some of these, I like I said, I saw the thing. It was a documentary that W. Kamau Bell did. We got to talk about Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
And I'll just be honest, I didn't believe all them women.
Yeah.
I think some of them got caught up in a good Hollywood game, and you know they went to a married man's hotel room, and you know they wind up not getting a record deal or getting to be on TV. Yeah. Now, mind you, I only have to believe one of them to think that Bill Cosby is a piece of shit for the things that he did, and that's enough for me. But like I said, there's a thin line sometimes between being a victim and a volunteer. I think every man who's famous needs to learn from this is you need to have a level of discipline. I saw this thing with Lenny Kravitz. He put out an album last year that was kind of ignored, but very good. Lenny's super rich though, but so it's all good. He's not hurting, but he said he hasn't had sex in like 7 years.
Good for him.
And you know what? Ain't nobody coming after Lenny
at all.
You know what I'm saying? That level of discipline lets him live a life that he can go to sleep every night not thinking somebody's going to pick up the phone and call TMZ about it.
Depends on if he did something 10, 15, 20 years ago. But, I mean, that's true. That's good for him, man. All I can really say in this situation is anybody that's coming up or, you know what I'm saying, coming into some money, some kind of power, some kind of influence, do not let your sexual tendencies take over you to the point where you're trying things just because and just becoming this maniac that just wants to satisfy every little sexual itch that you have, because it's disgusting.
Or just be honest about it.
Or that.
Yeah. Tell the truth.
Like,
be honest about it and just eat it.
Look, there's
That's it.
Pause.
I mean, he's right though. He's right.
I mean, you know,
he's right.
Look,
Imagine if Diddy was comfortable enough to be in the open about these things.
And what if
he probably wouldn't be in?
Well, no, he'd be at home right now.
He'd probably be in the crib right now.
You know, because like I said, there's people out there who will not, who are looking to say yes to involve themselves in whatever weird stuff you like.
So yeah, have we learned anything about society and how certain public figures are viewed during the situations like this?
Absolutely. Everybody has their own opinion and have held their own court, so to speak, before this even happened. So there's a lot of people that have formulated how they felt about him based on just not liking him. So they're going to automatically say he's guilty. Obviously, he's done these things. But again, to me, it kind of boils down to being a willing participant and somebody that was made to participate. And that's kind of what I'm waiting for before I can pass judgment.
Mm-hmm. Good answer. Yeah. I think you got it on that one. That's pretty much it right there. That's a good answer.
Yeah, but I think even still, though, the only pushback I would have towards that would be that even if somebody is just around consent, and once somebody decides no, that should be it, you know, and you know that's just the way that it is, and we need to teach our young fellas and women, but young fellas in general, early from an early on age to understand what consent actually is, and to that needs to be something that is learned from a young age. And,
that's real. That's real.
You know. And that this stuff is not okay and it shouldn't be looked at as okay.
And, you know, I think, sadly, when there's so much drugs and alcohol involved, you know, once again, we do need to have those conversations. I don't know in what form we could have those conversations, especially with our young men, you know, because it can get dicey on what, you know, somebody, you know, I don't know, maybe you got nephews or, you know, just young people that, you know, you might see them and they might have some questions. You know, we got to start having these conversations. But one of the things that I would tell anybody, especially if you're young, if she's too high or too drunk to say yes, the answer is no.
True.
And just understand, you know, don't try to, you know, talk your way into it. It's just easier for you to step away and not have there be any questions later on.
That's real. That's real.